In the darkest corner of the galaxy, where even light fears to travel, something ancient stirs. For 10,000 years, it has watched civilizations rise and fall like waves against an endless shore. It has seen species that could bend reality with their minds, races that built stars as stepping stones, and empires that span dimensions. But today, something has made this timeless being afraid. Today, it speaks a warning that will shake the very foundations of galactic civilization. Earth must not be provoked. What could possibly make a creature older than most stars fear a small blue planet on the galaxy's outer rim? What lurks beneath humanity's seemingly primitive exterior that has caught the attention of beings who consider themselves gods? The answer lies not in humanity's weapons, their technology, or their armies. It lies in something far more dangerous, something that once unleashed cannot be contained, something that even the ancient ones learned to fear. The council chamber of the Galactic Federation stretched across a space larger than most worlds. Its crystalline walls pulsed with the collective consciousness of 1 billion member species, each thought adding another layer of impossible geometry to the structure. Here, in this place between dimensions, the most powerful beings in the known universe gathered to decide the fate of countless worlds. Ambassador Thexali of the Zephyrian Empire adjusted her plasma crown as she entered the chamber. Her species had ruled over 200 star systems for 3 millennia, their psychic abilities allowing them to bend lesser minds to their will. She considered herself among the most influential voices in the council. Today, however, her confidence wavered as whispers of an unprecedented emergency session reached her consciousness. The massive chamber held representatives from every corner of galactic civilization. The crystalline Veltar hummed in harmonious frequencies that could shatter planets. The energy beings of the photonic collective flickered in and, out of visible spectrum, their very presence warping local reality. Ancient machine intelligences that had outlived their creators stood in perfect silence, calculating probabilities that spanned eons. At the center of it all, floating in a sphere of contained starfire, was the Council's most mysterious member, known only as the Ancient One. This being predated the formation of the Federation by millions of years. Most Council members had never heard it speak. Some questioned whether it was truly alive or merely some remnant of a civilization so advanced that their leftovers seemed godlike. Today, the Ancient One had called the emergency session. High Counselor Vexrath of the Dominion Corps raised his 6 arms for attention. His species had mastered genetic engineering to such a degree that they could rewrite reality at the molecular level. Fellow counselors, we gather at the request of our eldest member. The Ancient One has remained silent for 700 cycles, observing our deliberations without comment. Today, it has chosen to break that silence. The chamber fell quiet. Even the ever-chattering probability matrices of the machine collective ceased their calculations. In this silence, the Ancient One began to change. The starfire that contained it dimmed, revealing something that hurt to perceive directly. Not because of its alien nature, but because of its impossible age. Looking upon the Ancient One was like staring into the heat death of the universe itself. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of geological ages. I have watched species rise from primordial seas to bend the fabric of space itself. I have seen civilizations that could birth new stars and others that learned to step between dimensions as easily as crossing a room. I have observed the patterns that govern the rise and fall of galactic empires. The Ancient One paused, and in that moment of silence, every being in the chamber felt the crushing weight of time itself. In all my eons of observation, I have identified certain traits that separate the merely advanced from the truly dangerous. Today, I must warn this council about a species that possesses all of these traits in abundance. Ambassador Thexali leaned forward, her psychic tendrils unconsciously probing for more information. Ancient One, which species threatens our stability? The Void Hunters? The reality weavers of the Andromeda Spiral? No, the Ancient One replied, its form shifting to show images pulled from the cosmic data stream. The species I speak of calls their world Earth. They refer to themselves as humans. A ripple of confusion spread through the chamber. The Zephyrian delegates exchanged glances through their psychic link. The crystalline collective's harmonic frequencies shifted to express bewilderment. Even the ancient machines seemed to pause in their eternal calculations. High Counselor Vexwrath accessed the galactic database with a thought. Humans? The bipedal mammals from the Sol system? Our surveys classify them as a class 2 developing civilization. They've barely achieved faster-than-light travel. Their most advanced weapons are primitive nuclear devices. What possible threat could they pose? The Ancient One's form pulsed with something that might have been amusement if such ancient beings could feel such emotions. High Counselor, your assessment demonstrates precisely why this warning is necessary. You judge them by their technology, their weapons, their territorial expansion. These are the measures by which most species are evaluated. But humans are not most species. Images began to cascade through the chamber's consciousness network. Earth, a small blue world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. Cities sprawling across continents. Primitive spacecraft beginning to venture beyond their home system. To most observers, nothing distinguished this world from countless others at similar developmental stages. Observe their history, the Ancient One continued. In the span of a single rotation around their star, they can transform from scattered tribes to planetary dominance. Their rate of adaptation is unmatched in galactic records. But this is not what makes them dangerous. The images shifted to show human conflicts throughout their history. Wars that spanned continents, technologies developed in generations rather than millennia. The assembled counselors watched with growing interest as the scope of human achievement became apparent. Their technological progress follows no rational pattern, observed CoreMind 7431 of the Machine Collective, its computational matrix struggling to process the data. They achieve breakthroughs through methods our models classify as impossible. Their research methodology violates every principle of systematic advancement. Indeed, the Ancient One acknowledged, they do not follow the orderly progression that characterizes other species' development. They leap across technological gaps through pure force of will and desperate innovation. But even this is not their most dangerous trait. The chamber's attention focused with laser intensity. If technological unpredictability wasn't humanity's greatest threat, what could be? The characteristic that makes humans truly dangerous, the Ancient One continued, is their absolute refusal to accept limitations. Every other species in this galaxy eventually encounters boundaries they cannot cross. Physical laws they cannot break. Realities they cannot change. And they adapt to these limitations, building their civilizations within acceptable parameters. Images flashed through the collective consciousness, showing humanity's historical response to limitation. Mountains climbed, oceans crossed, diseases conquered, the very sky itself breached when it was thought impossible. Humans do not adapt to limitations, the Ancient One stated with finality. They eliminate them. Ambassador Thexali felt a chill despite her species' natural heat regulation. Surely you exaggerate, Ancient One. Every species has physical constraints they must accept. The laws of physics apply equally to all matter. Do they? The Ancient One responded. And, suddenly, the chamber was filled with visions from Earth's recent history. Humans splitting atoms to harness the power of stars. Humans encoding information in the quantum structure of reality itself. Humans beginning to manipulate genetic codes with the casual ease of rewriting text. Consider their response to the barrier of death itself. The Ancient One continued. Most species accept mortality as a fundamental constraint of existence. Humans treat it as a problem to be solved. They freeze their dead in hopes of future resurrection. They transfer consciousness into artificial substrates. They manipulate their biological structures to extend life beyond natural limits. The vision shifted to show human medical advances that defied conventional understanding. hearts transplanted between bodies, artificial organs that exceeded biological capabilities, genetic therapies that rewrote the fundamental code of life itself. They have existed as a technological species for less than 1% of my observed time frame, the Ancient One noted. Yet they have already begun to challenge barriers that most civilizations never dare approach. What will they accomplish in a full millennium? In 10 millennia, High Counselor Vexwrath attempted to project confidence he no longer felt. Ancient One, your concerns may be premature. Yes, humans show unusual determination, but they remain technologically primitive. Our most basic defense systems could eliminate their entire civilization without significant effort. The Ancient One's form suddenly expanded, filling the chamber with its presence. When it spoke again, its voice carried overtones that resonated in dimensions beyond normal perception. High Counselor, I once made that same assumption about another species. They called themselves the Architects, and they built monuments that still orbit dead stars in the galactic core. They possessed technology that could reshape reality at will. They considered themselves the rightful rulers of all existence. The chamber grew absolutely still. The Architects were legend, their ruins scattered across the galaxy like tombstones of ambition. No one knew what had destroyed them. The Architects encountered a young species that showed similar traits to modern humans. The same refusal to accept limitations. The same desperate innovation. The same absolute determination to overcome any obstacle. The Architects decided to eliminate this threat before it could develop. Images cascaded through the chamber's awareness, showing ancient battlefields on worlds now turned to glass. Fleets of impossibly advanced ships locked in combat with crude vessels that had no right to survive. The war lasted 300 years. The Ancient One continued. The Architects possessed every advantage. Superior technology, vast fleets, weapons that could unmake matter itself. They should have achieved victory within months. The images showed the progression of the conflict. Initial Architect victories giving way to stalemate as their enemies adapted with impossible speed. Crude ships evolving into deadly predators through desperate innovation. But their enemies had one advantage the Architects could never match. When faced with impossible odds, when confronted with certain defeat, when every rational analysis declared their situation hopeless, they simply refused to surrender. They adapted. They innovated. They transformed themselves into something their enemies could not comprehend. The final images were almost too terrible to perceive. Architect worlds burning, their reality-shaping technology turned against them. Fleets of advanced vessels reduced to cosmic debris by weapons that violated every known principle of physics. In the end, the Ancient One concluded the Architect's superior technology became irrelevant. Their enemies had learned to break the rules that govern technological advancement itself. They won because they refused to accept that winning was impossible. The chamber remained silent as the implications sank in. If an advanced civilization like the Architects could be defeated by a primitive but determined enemy, what did that mean for the current galactic order? What became of this species? Asked Ambassador Thexali, though part of her already knew the answer. They transcended, the Ancient One replied. Having broken every limitation they encountered, they eventually broke the final one. They left this dimension entirely, ascending to realms beyond physical existence. But before they departed, they left behind certain artifacts, technologies, and knowledge too dangerous for younger species to discover. The Ancient One's form shifted to display star charts showing the distribution of these forbidden zones across the galaxy. We have spent millions of years ensuring that no species accidentally triggers these remnants. The potential for catastrophic galaxy-wide destruction remains even after all this time. CoreMind 7431 processed this information through its vast computational matrices. Ancient One, you suggest that humans possess similar traits to this vanished species. But surely their current primitive state offers us significant warning time. Warning time, the Ancient One repeated, and for the first time in eons, something like bitter laughter colored its voice. Core mind, let me share what I have observed of human development patterns. In their year 1900, by their calendar, they achieved powered flight. Within 70 years, they had reached their moon. Within another 50, they had begun to decode the fundamental structure of life itself. The mathematical implications hit the machine intelligence like a physical blow. Such accelerated development violated every model of technological progression. Their war-making capacity follows the same pattern. The ancient one continued. In the span of a single major conflict, they progressed from cavalry charges to atomic weapons. Their most recent global war saw the invention of rocket technology, computer systems, and nuclear physics simultaneously. Images flowed through the chamber, showing human technological leaps during times of conflict. Innovations that should have taken centuries compressed into years or even months. Most concerning of all, the Ancient One added, they have already begun to encounter the barriers that define the limits of conventional civilization. They are approaching the threshold where they will need to choose between accepting limitations and breaking through to something unprecedented. High Counselor Vexrath felt his genetic modifications struggling to maintain his confidence. What do you propose, Ancient One? Surely we cannot base policy on speculation about future developments. I propose, the Ancient One said, its voice carrying the authority of geological ages, that this council establish a strict non-interference protocol regarding Earth and its human inhabitants. No contact, no observation beyond passive monitoring, no intervention in their natural development. The suggestion sent shockwaves through the assembled delegates. Non-interference protocols were typically reserved for pre-spaceflight civilizations or species showing signs of dangerous instability. You ask us to ignore a potentially dangerous species? Demanded Admiral Korthax of the Hegemony Defense Fleet. Our mandate is to protect galactic stability. If humans pose a future threat, should we not act to contain that threat while we still can? The Ancient One's attention focused on the Admiral with crushing intensity. Admiral, I watched the architects make that same decision. They believed their superior technology guaranteed victory. They were wrong. I will not watch this council repeat their fatal error. But, surely, Ambassador Thexali interjected, our combined forces represent a different magnitude of power than what the architects possessed alone. Do they? The Ancient One asked. Ambassador, are you prepared to stake the existence of galactic civilization on that assumption? Because that is precisely what you would be doing. If my assessment is correct, any hostile action toward Earth would not eliminate the human threat. It would accelerate their development along the most dangerous possible trajectory. The chamber fell silent as delegates contemplated this possibility. The idea that aggression might strengthen rather than eliminate a threat contradicted every principle of galactic warfare. Explain, demanded High Counselor Vexrath. Humans respond to existential threats through rapid evolutionary leaps, the Ancient One explained. Faced with extinction, they do not merely fight harder with existing capabilities. They transform themselves into something capable of survival. Challenge them, and they become whatever they need to become to overcome that challenge. Images flashed through the chamber, showing human responses to various crises throughout their history. Each catastrophe produced innovations that elevated their entire civilization to new levels of capability. Attack them with superior technology, and they will develop superior counter-technology. Assault them with overwhelming force, and they will find ways to turn that force against you. Threaten their existence, and they will transcend the limitations that made them vulnerable in the first place. The Ancient One paused, allowing this assessment to sink in before delivering its final warning. There is only one safe way to deal with a species like humanity. We must ensure they never perceive us as a threat to their continued existence. We must never give them reason to view us as a limitation that needs to be overcome. The silence that followed stretched across centuries of careful thought. Finally, High Counselor Vexrath spoke for the entire council. Ancient One, your wisdom has guided us for eons. If you believe non-interference is our safest course, we will consider your recommendation seriously. But surely some minimal observation is necessary. We cannot remain completely ignorant of their development. Passive monitoring only, the Ancient One conceded. Automated systems, no direct contact, and, above all, no actions that might be interpreted as attempts to limit their natural development. We must remain invisible to them until they achieve sufficient advancement to contact us voluntarily. And if they never do, asked Ambassador Thexali, if they develop along peaceful lines and never venture beyond their local system, then we will have gained a neighbor rather than created a threat, the Ancient One replied. But I suspect that is not humanity's destiny. Sooner or later, they will reach beyond their world. When that day comes, we must ensure they perceive us as potential allies, not obstacles to overcome. As the session drew to a close, delegates began the complex process of formal deliberation. But the Ancient One's warning had already achieved its primary purpose. For the first time in galactic history, a primitive species would be granted the ultimate protection, the fear of those who considered themselves gods. In the depths of space, automated monitoring stations began to adjust their protocols. Observation would continue, but interference ceased entirely. Humanity would develop according to its own nature, unaware that its future was being watched by beings who had learned to fear what it might become. The Ancient One settled back into its contemplative silence, knowing that its warning had been heard and understood. But deep in its vast consciousness, older memories stirred. Memories of another young species that had shown similar promise, similar danger. That species had transcended without becoming a threat to others. But there had been another, in a galaxy now reduced to cosmic dust, that had chosen a different path entirely. Time would tell which pattern humanity would follow. But until that determination could be made with certainty, Earth must not be provoked. Commander Sarah Chun pressed her palm against the viewing portal of the exploration vessel Pathfinder as it dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Alpha Centauri system. After 18 months of traveling through the void between stars, the sight of triple suns casting their light across space filled her with profound relief. Humanity's first interstellar expedition was approaching its destination. Navigation confirms we're in the target system, reported Lieutenant Rodriguez from his station. All systems nominal after hyperspace transition. Sarah nodded, though her attention remained fixed on the alien stars ahead. In the 6 months since Earth's first successful faster-than-light flight, humanity had thrown everything into this moment. The Pathfinder represented the combined efforts of every nation on Earth, humanity's first deliberate step into the broader galaxy. Dr. Walsh, any signs of artificial structures or energy signatures? She asked. Dr. Margaret Walsh looked up from her sensor array, excitement evident in her voice. Commander, you need to see this. I'm detecting massive artificial structures throughout the system. Not just around Proxima Centauri, but orbital platforms around all 3 stars. The energy outputs are off the charts. Sarah felt her heart rate spike. They had expected to find evidence of extraterrestrial life eventually, but discovering advanced civilization in the closest neighboring system exceeded their most optimistic projections. Can you determine their purpose? The platforms appear to be some kind of monitoring stations, Dr. Walsh continued, her instruments working to analyze the alien technology. They're clearly artificial, but the design principles are unlike anything in our theoretical frameworks. Commander, the computational power implied by these structures suggests a civilization far beyond our current capabilities. Lieutenant Rodriguez suddenly straightened at his station. Commander, I'm receiving a transmission. It's directed specifically at us, using basic mathematical principles as a foundation. They know we're here. Sarah exchanged glances with her senior staff. First contact protocols have been debated endlessly in the years leading to this mission, but facing the reality brought a weight that no simulation could replicate. Put it through, Lieutenant. The main display activated, showing a complex but comprehensible pattern of mathematical relationships. As the transmission continued, it became clear that whoever was sending the message possessed sophisticated understanding of human mathematical concepts. They're teaching us their communication protocol, Dr. Walsh realized, starting with basic arithmetic and building toward more complex concepts. Whoever designed this is incredibly patient and methodical. Over the next several hours, the transmission evolved from simple mathematics to basic linguistic structures. The alien intelligence was essentially teaching them its language in real time, demonstrating a level of pedagogical sophistication that impressed the entire crew. When the first translated words finally appeared on their screens, the message was simple but profound. Welcome, humans of Earth. We have been waiting for you to achieve interstellar travel. Please maintain your current position while we prepare appropriate protocols for first contact. Sarah felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. This is it, she said quietly. Prepare a response. Let them know we understand their message and will comply with their request. What followed was humanity's first conversation with an alien intelligence. The entity identified itself as Monitor Station Alpha 7, an automated system responsible for observing developing civilizations in this sector of the galaxy. It explained that humans had been under observation for several decades, but always from a respectful distance that avoided interference with natural development. Your species has achieved the milestone of interstellar travel, the monitor explained through increasingly sophisticated translation protocols. This qualifies you for contact with the broader galactic community. However, there are certain protocols that must be observed. Dr. Walsh leaned forward in fascination. What kind of protocols? The Galactic Federation maintains strict guidelines for first contact situations. Your species must demonstrate certain capabilities and understanding before full integration can begin. These requirements exist for the protection of both emerging and established civilizations. Sarah nodded, though part of her bristled at the implication that humanity needed protection. What do we need to demonstrate? The response took longer to arrive, as if the monitor was consulting with higher authorities. Commander Chun, your species presents certain unique characteristics that require special consideration. The protocols for human contact differ from standard procedures. How so? Sarah asked, though she wasn't entirely sure she wanted to hear the answer. Humans demonstrate development patterns that are unprecedented in galactic records. Your rate of technological advancement, your response to challenges, your refusal to accept limitations. These traits have been noted by Federation observers. Special precautions are deemed necessary. Lieutenant Rodriguez looked puzzled. Precautions against what? We're not here as conquerors. This is a peaceful scientific expedition. The precautions, the monitor replied, are not based on your current intentions, but on your species' documented behavioral patterns. Humans have a tendency to exceed projected development curves by significant margins. The Federation requires time to prepare appropriate response protocols. Dr. Walsh's scientific curiosity overrode her diplomatic caution. What do you mean by exceed projected development curves? The answer, when it came, carried implications that none of them had anticipated. Dr. Walsh, human technological development follows patterns that violate standard models of civilization advancement. In the past century of your time, you have compressed what typically requires millennia of gradual progress into a few decades of explosive growth. The monitor began transmitting data showing comparative development curves for various galactic civilizations. The patterns were remarkably consistent across dozens of species, gradual, predictable advancement following logical progressions of discovery and application. Then, it showed humanity's curve. This is impossible, Dr. Walsh breathed, staring at the data. According to these comparisons, we're developing at nearly 100 times the normal rate. The acceleration appears to be increasing, the monitor added. Federation analysts project that humans will achieve technological capabilities equivalent to advanced galactic civilizations within centuries rather than millennia. This presents unprecedented challenges for integration protocols. Sarah felt a mix of pride, and unease. So we're faster learners than average. Why does that require special precautions? The Monitor's response revealed the depths of galactic concern about humanity's future. Commander, rapid development is not inherently problematic. However, human advancement shows patterns that historically correlate with either transcendence or catastrophic instability. The Federation has encountered similar patterns only twice in recorded galactic history. What happened to those species? Sarah asked, though she wasn't certain she wanted to know. One achieved transcendence, departing this dimensional framework for realms beyond current understanding. Their departure was peaceful, though they left behind technologies too advanced for current galactic civilization to safely utilize. And the other? The pause before the Monitor's response lasted long enough that Sarah began to wonder if the connection had been lost. Finally, the translation came through. The other triggered a cascading conflict that resulted in the destruction of 17 star systems and the extinction of multiple advanced civilizations. The affected region of the galaxy remains quarantined to this day. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's rapid development, which had seemed like an asset, was apparently viewed by galactic civilization as a potential existential threat. Monitor, Sarah said carefully, what determines which path a rapidly developing species takes? Unknown, came the reply. The variables that influence transcendence versus destruction remain beyond current analytical capabilities. This uncertainty is the source of Federation concern regarding human development. Dr. Walsh leaned back in her chair, processing the magnitude of what they were learning. So the galactic community is afraid of us. Not afraid, the Monitor corrected. Cautious. The Federation has existed for millions of years by carefully managing the integration of new species. Humans represent variables that existing protocols cannot adequately address. Lieutenant Rodriguez looked up from his communications array. Commander, I'm detecting multiple ships approaching our position. Configuration unknown, but they're much larger than anything in our fleet. The main display shifted to show the approaching vessels. Even at extreme range, their size and sophistication were immediately apparent. These were not exploration ships like the Pathfinder, but something far more advanced. Those are Federation first contact vessels, the Monitor explained. They carry diplomatic teams specialized in managing integration protocols for developing species. However, they also carry additional capabilities should circumstances require alternative approaches. The unspoken implication hung heavy in the recycled air of the Pathfinder's bridge. These weren't just diplomats approaching. They were also a deterrent force, ready to act if humanity proved to be the wrong kind of rapidly developing species. Monitor, Sarah said, choosing her words very carefully, what would constitute circumstances requiring alternative approaches? Any actions or developments that suggest human advancement is following destructive rather than transcendent patterns. Any attempts to acquire technologies or capabilities before demonstrating appropriate wisdom and restraint. Any behavior that suggests humans might pose a threat to galactic stability. Dr. Walsh spoke up from her station. And who determines whether our behavior fits those criteria? The assessment will be made by entities far older and more experienced than the Federation's normal diplomatic corps. Observer-class beings who have monitored galactic development for eons. Their judgment in these matters has never been successfully challenged. The approaching Federation ships grew larger on their displays, and Sarah realized that humanity was about to face its first true test on the galactic stage. Everything they said and did in the coming days would determine not just their own fate, but potentially the future relationship between Earth and the rest of galactic civilization. Commander, Dr. Walsh said quietly, what if they're right to be cautious? What if we really are dangerous? Sarah considered the question seriously. Human history was filled with examples of rapid advancement, leading to devastating consequences. The 20th century alone had seen the development of weapons capable of destroying entire civilizations, often created by the same minds that achieve humanity's greatest scientific breakthroughs. Maybe they are right to be cautious, she admitted. But we can't change what we are. All we can do is prove that our development can follow a positive path. And if we can't prove that, Lieutenant Rodriguez asked. Sarah looked at the approaching Federation ships, their alien design and unknown capabilities representing forces beyond human comprehension. Then, I suppose we'll discover what alternative approaches they're prepared to implement. The Pathfinder continued its steady course toward Proxima Centauri, carrying humanity's representatives toward their first formal contact with galactic civilization. Behind them, Earth continued its relentless technological advancement, unaware that its future was being evaluated by beings who had witnessed the rise and fall of countless species across cosmic time. In the depths of space, automated monitoring stations continued their passive observation of human development. The data they collected would determine whether Earth would be welcomed into galactic society or classified as a threat requiring containment. The Ancient One had issued its warning to prevent unnecessary conflict, but it had also set in motion events that would test that warning's wisdom. Humanity was about to discover that being remarkable was not necessarily the same as being welcome. The Federation ships established formation around the Pathfinder, their hulls gleaming with technologies that human science could not yet comprehend. As they began broadcasting formal first contact protocols, Sarah realized that this moment would determine not just humanity's immediate future, but whether they would be allowed to determine their own destiny at all. The galaxy was watching, and judgment was at hand. Ambassador Veltar's crystalline form resonated with harmonic frequencies of deep concern as she addressed the emergency session of the Federation Council. 3 months had passed since first contact with the humans, and the situation was developing in ways that violated every prediction their xenosociologists had made. "Honored counselors," she began, her voice creating complex interference patterns in the chamber's atmosphere. "I must report that initial contact protocols with the human species have produced unexpected complications." High Counselor Vex Wrath leaned forward, his genetically enhanced features betraying unusual anxiety. "Define complications, Ambassador." Veltar's form shifted through several color spectrums before settling on a deep amber that signified profound unease. "The humans have demonstrated capabilities that our preliminary assessments failed to identify. Their single exploration vessel, which we classified as primitive by our standards, has presented challenges that our first contact teams are struggling to address." A ripple of concern passed through the assembled delegates. First contact missions were typically routine procedures, handled by experienced diplomatic teams using protocols refined over millions of years. The suggestion that a single primitive vessel could challenge these established procedures was deeply troubling. "Elaborate," demanded Admiral Korthax, his military mindset immediately focusing on potential threats. "The human vessel Pathfinder carries a crew of only 37 individuals," Veltar continued. "Standard protocol would be to overwhelm them with the scope and sophistication of Federation technology, establishing clear hierarchical relationships before proceeding with integration discussions." Coremine 7430, one of the machine collective, processed this information through its vast computational matrices. "Ambassador Veltar, such protocols have proven effective with over 3,000 species. What response did the humans demonstrate that differs from established patterns?" Veltar's harmonic frequency shifted to express something approaching admiration mixed with deep concern. "They were impressed, certainly, but rather than being intimidated or overwhelmed, they immediately began analyzing our technology. Their questions have progressed from basic curiosity to sophisticated technical inquiries that suggest they are reverse engineering our systems in real time." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The ability to analyze and understand alien technology during first contact was virtually unprecedented. Most species required decades or centuries of gradual technological transfer to comprehend even basic Federation systems. Furthermore, Veltar continued, Their vessel appears to be some kind of modular experimental platform rather than a simple exploration ship. They have been modifying their systems continuously since contact began, incorporating principles derived from observation of our technology. Admiral Korthax's 4 primary eyes focused with laser intensity. Are you suggesting they're weaponizing stolen Federation technology? No, Admiral. Their modifications appear to be directed toward improved communication, better sensor capability, and enhanced analysis systems. They seem to be transforming their ship into a more sophisticated platform for understanding our civilization. High Counselor Vexwrath accessed the detailed reports through his neural interface. Ambassador, according to these files, the humans have developed functional versions of 3 different Federation communication protocols, created theoretical frameworks for 4 types of FTL drive systems they've never seen before, and proposed 17 different applications for our gravitational manipulation technology. All within 3 months of first contact, Veltar confirmed. And these achievements represent the work of 37 individuals operating with primitive computational support. CoreMind 7431's processing arrays struggled to calculate the implications. The rate of advancement you describe violates every model of technological assimilation. Even our most optimistic projections suggested such achievements would require decades of guided development. There is more, Veltar continued, her harmonics now expressing genuine alarm. The humans have been asking questions about galactic history, political structures, and economic systems. But not the questions we expected. What kind of questions? Asked Ambassador Thexali of the Zephyrian Empire. They want to know about resource allocation inefficiencies in Federation systems. They have identified what they call structural limitations in our governmental framework. They have proposed alternative organizational models that they claim would improve galactic coordination by several orders of magnitude. The delegates exchanged glances across species barriers. The suggestion that a primitive species could identify improvements to governmental systems that had evolved over millions of years was almost incomprehensible. Have these proposals been analyzed? High Counselor Vexwrath inquired. Veltar's form dimmed with something approaching embarrassment. Our best political theorists have been studying human suggestions for 2 months. Their preliminary assessment is that the proposed modifications would indeed improve Federation efficiency, but implementing them would require fundamental changes to structures that have remained stable for eons. The Ancient One, silent throughout the discussion, suddenly expanded its presence until it filled the chamber with overwhelming awareness. Show them the human questions about physics. Veltar's harmonics shifted to express reluctance. Ancient One, those inquiries venture into areas that we typically restrict to species with centuries of supervised development. Show them, the Ancient One insisted, its voice carrying overtones that bypassed conscious thought and spoke directly to primal survival instincts. Veltar reluctantly accessed the classified portions of her report. The humans have been asking about the theoretical foundations of our technology. Not how to replicate it, but why it works. They want to understand the underlying principles that govern faster-than-light travel, artificial gravity, dimensional manipulation, and quantum consciousness interfaces. Such questions are normal for developing species, Admiral Korthax observed. What makes the human inquiries significant? They are not asking how to learn these principles, Veltar explained. They are asking why our approaches are limited to their current applications. They have identified what they claim are unnecessary restrictions in our theoretical frameworks. CoreMind 7431 ran probability calculations that produced results its logic circuits flagged as impossible. Ambassador, are you stating that humans believe they can identify improvements to physical theories that have been validated across millions of years of application? I'm stating that they have identified such improvements, Veltar replied, and their suggestions appear to be theoretically sound. The silence that followed stretched across several minutes of processing time before High Counselor Vexwrath found his voice. Veltar, what you describe is impossible. These humans have been a spacefaring species for less than a year. They cannot possess theoretical understanding superior to civilizations with millions of years of development. Nevertheless, Veltar continued, our physicists have confirmed that human theoretical proposals would indeed expand the capabilities of existing technologies, in some cases by factors of thousands. The Ancient One's presence suddenly intensified, flooding the chamber with memories drawn from cosmic time. This is exactly what I warned you about. This is how it begins. Images flashed through the collective consciousness showing another species, in another time, asking similar questions about the theoretical foundations of advanced technology. The progression was unmistakable. Curiosity leading to understanding, understanding leading to innovation, innovation leading to capabilities that exceeded their teachers. Ancient One, Admiral Korthax said carefully, surely there are containment protocols we can implement. Limitations on information transfer. Restrictions on technological access. The Ancient One's response carried the weight of cosmic tragedy. Admiral, observe the human response to our existing limitations. New images flowed through the chamber, showing the Pathfinder's continuous modifications. Rather than waiting for Federation approval or guidance, the humans have been independently developing theoretical frameworks based on limited observations. Their progress suggested that formal restrictions would only accelerate their independent research. They are not seeking our permission to advance, the Ancient One explained. They are seeking to understand whether our approaches represent optimal solutions to universal problems. And they're discovering that in many cases they do not. Dr. Walsh's voice came through the communication link that connected the Federation diplomatic team to the Pathfinder. Ambassador Veltar, we've completed our analysis of the gravitational wave patterns your ships generate during FDL transition. We think we've identified the source of a 97% energy inefficiency in your drive systems. Veltar's form cycled through several color patterns of distress before responding. Dr. Walsh, that inefficiency rate is classified information that was not shared with your team. We calculated it independently from observation data, Dr. Walsh replied. Your FDL drives are elegantly designed, but they're using brute force approaches where more sophisticated mathematics could achieve the same results with minimal energy expenditure. Would you like us to show you the theoretical framework? The diplomatic team exchanged glances of growing alarm. Human observation and analysis were progressing far beyond safe parameters, and their willingness to share improvements suggested either remarkable confidence or dangerous naivety. Dr. Walsh, Veltar responded carefully. Such theoretical discussions typically require extensive preparation and authorization from Federation scientific councils. Of course, Dr. Walsh acknowledged. We're not trying to rush anything, but we wanted you to know that we're available to contribute to your research if there's interest in collaborative development. The connection closed, leaving the Federation team to contemplate the implications. The humans weren't just learning from Federation technology, they were preparing to improve it. This confirms our worst projections, CoreMind 7431 announced. Human development patterns suggest they will achieve technological superiority within decades rather than millennia. Their collaborative approach indicates they may not perceive this advancement as threatening to galactic stability. Ambassador Thexali's psychic tendrils writhed with agitation. How can they not understand the implications? Superior technology equals superior power. Superior power inevitably leads to expansion and conflict. Perhaps, the Ancient One suggested, that assumption reveals more about our limitations than theirs. The chamber fell silent as delegates contemplated this possibility. For millions of years, galactic civilization had been based on the principle that technological advantage automatically conferred political and military dominance. The suggestion that this principle might not apply to humans challenged fundamental assumptions about the nature of power itself. Ancient One, High Counselor Vexrath asked, what do you recommend? The humans are developing beyond our ability to guide or contain their advancement. Standard integration protocols are proving inadequate. I recommend, the Ancient One replied, that we prepare for the possibility that our roles may reverse sooner than anticipated. The humans may soon be in a position to guide our advancement rather than the other way around. The implications struck the chamber like a physical force. The Federation had been the dominant galactic power for millions of years. The suggestion that a species barely a year into interstellar travel might soon be their technological superior violated every assumption about the natural order of civilization. That is unacceptable, Admiral Korthax declared. Military intervention may be necessary to preserve galactic stability. The Ancient One's response was immediate and absolute. Admiral, military intervention would guarantee the exact outcome we're trying to prevent. Attack the humans now, and you will accelerate their development along the most dangerous possible trajectory. Then, what do you propose? Demanded High Counselor Vexrath. We cannot simply wait and hope they choose a benevolent path. We can do exactly what they are doing to us, the Ancient One replied. We can try to understand them. We can learn from them. And we can hope that our willingness to treat them as equals rather than threats will influence their development toward cooperation rather than conquest. Ambassador Veltar's harmonics shifted to express deep uncertainty. Ancient One, that approach assumes human development will follow rational patterns. But nothing about their advancement suggests they operate according to normal logical frameworks. Precisely, the Ancient One confirmed, which is why traditional approaches are doomed to failure. We must be prepared to think as irrationally as they do. The session continued for hours as delegates struggled to develop new protocols for a situation without precedent. But even as they debated, the Pathfinder continued its modifications, and its crew continued asking questions that challenged the theoretical foundations of galactic civilization. In the depths of space, automated monitoring stations detected something unprecedented. Human radio transmissions directed toward Earth were describing Federation technology with mathematical precision that exceeded the Federation's own understanding. Humanity was not just learning. They were preparing to teach. The emergency klaxons of Federation Monitoring Station Omega 7 pierced through the quantum foam surrounding Earth's solar system, their harmonics designed to penetrate even the most advanced consciousness filters. Station Commander Zixanael materialized from his meditation chamber, his energy-based form crackling with alarm as automated systems bombarded his awareness with unprecedented data streams. Report, he commanded, his consciousness interfacing directly with the station's vast sensor arrays. Commander, responded his science officer, a crystalline entity whose thought patterns ran along mathematical precision. We are detecting massive technological acceleration across the entire Earth system. The development rate has increased by a factor of 37 in the past 6 months. Zixanael felt something approaching panic for the first time in his 3,000-year existence. 37-fold acceleration? That's impossible. Even human development patterns don't suggest such extreme variance. The main display activated, showing a three-dimensional representation of the Sol system that bore little resemblance to observations from just months earlier. Where once there had been a single world with primitive orbital installations, now there was a network of industrial platforms that stretched from Mercury to the outer planets. Commander, it appears that information transmitted from the Pathfinder during first contact has triggered what humans call a technological revolution across their entire civilization, the science officer continued. They have somehow compressed what should be centuries of development into a matter of months. Images cascaded across the display, showing construction projects that defied conventional understanding of engineering capability. Massive orbital shipyards around Earth were producing vessels that incorporated theoretical principles the Federation had taken millennia to develop. Industrial complexes on Luna were manufacturing materials that required technologies humans shouldn't possess for generations. How is this possible? Zixanael demanded. The Pathfinder crew was specifically instructed to limit information transfer to basic communication protocols and general scientific principles. They followed those instructions precisely, Commander. However, human analytical capabilities appear to have exceeded all projections. They have extrapolated entire technological frameworks from minimal data sets. The science officer highlighted specific examples that demonstrated the scope of human achievement. Observation of Federation FTL drives has led to human development of 17 different faster-than-light propulsion systems. Analysis of our gravitational manipulation technology has produced human artificial gravity systems that exceed our own efficiency ratings. Study of our communication protocols has resulted in human development of quantum consciousness interfaces that approach theoretical maximum performance. Zixanael felt his energy matrix fluctuating with disbelief. Science officer, are you stating that humans have not merely replicated Federation technology, but actually improved upon it? In most cases, yes, Commander. Human approaches appear to be based on more sophisticated understanding of underlying physical principles. Their theoretical frameworks suggest they have identified fundamental inefficiencies in Federation methodologies. The display shifted to show comparative analysis between Federation technology and human innovations. The results were deeply troubling for anyone who believed in the natural superiority of advanced civilizations. Across virtually every category, human solutions demonstrated superior efficiency, greater capability, and more elegant implementation. Commander, the science officer continued, there is additional concerning data. Human development is not limited to technology that they have observed. They are making breakthrough discoveries in fields where they have received no external guidance whatsoever. New images showed human research facilities where scientists worked on projects that pushed the boundaries of theoretical physics. Quantum manipulation experiments that approached the level of reality shaping. Consciousness transfer technologies that threatened to break the barriers between biological and artificial intelligence. Temporal manipulation research that could lead to time travel capabilities. They are approaching technologies that the Federation classifies as too dangerous for widespread use. Zixanael observed with growing alarm. How close are they to achieving these capabilities? Based on current development rates, human civilization will achieve effective reality manipulation within 18 months. Consciousness transcendence technologies within 2 years. Temporal manipulation capabilities within 3 to 5 years. The implication struck Zixanael like a physical blow. These were technologies that the Federation had deliberately limited or banned due to their potential for catastrophic misuse. The possibility that humans might develop them independently, without the benefit of millions of years of wisdom regarding their proper application, was terrifying. Science officer, transmit an immediate priority communication to the Federation Council. Include all observational data and recommend immediate escalation to Ancient One consultation. As the transmission began, Zixanael continued monitoring human development with growing unease. The patterns he observed suggested that humanity was not simply advancing along established technological pathways. They were creating entirely new approaches to fundamental problems, approaches that often prove superior to Federation solutions. The communication link to Federation space crackled to life, carrying the voice of High Counselor Vex Wrath across impossible distances. Commander Zixanael, we have received your data transmission. The Council is convening an emergency session to address this situation. The Ancient One has expressed particular concern about human temporal manipulation research. Counselor, the development rate continues to accelerate. Zixanael reported. Our projections suggest exponential growth rather than linear progression. Human capabilities may soon exceed Federation levels across multiple technological categories. Commander, are there any signs of military application for these technologies? Any indication that humans are developing weapon systems based on their new capabilities? Zixanael consulted his sensor arrays, analyzing human industrial output for signs of weapons development. The results were simultaneously reassuring and deeply puzzling. Negative, Counselor. Human technology development appears focused entirely on exploration, research, and what they call quality of life improvements for their population. We detect no military applications. That makes no sense, came the reply. Every species that achieves rapid technological advancement immediately applies those capabilities to military systems. It's a universal pattern. Nevertheless, Counselor, human development appears to violate this pattern. Their new FTL drives are being installed on exploration and research vessels. Their gravitational manipulation technology is being used for construction and transportation. Their consciousness interface technology is being applied to education and artistic expression. The science officer highlighted additional data that reinforced this peculiar pattern. Commander, humans appear to be using their advanced capabilities to solve problems rather than create military advantages. They are addressing environmental damage to their world, eliminating poverty and disease among their population, and expanding their scientific understanding of the universe. High Counselor Vexrath's voice carried tones of confusion that rarely characterize Federation leadership. Commander, such application of advanced technology is unprecedented. Every civilization develops military capabilities as a priority. The fact that humans are not following this pattern suggests either remarkable wisdom or dangerous naivety. Counselor, there may be a third explanation, Zixanel suggested carefully. It is possible that humans do not perceive military development as necessary because they do not perceive external threats to their continued existence. The silence that followed stretched across several seconds of processing time before the High Counselor responded. Explain, Commander. Humans may be operating under the assumption that their rapid technological development guarantees their security. They may believe that any potential threat can be addressed through further innovation rather than military preparation. And if they're wrong about that assumption, Zixanel consulted probability matrices that produced results too disturbing to fully accept. If humans encounter a genuine existential threat, their response would likely be the immediate militarization of all their advanced technologies. The capabilities they are currently applying to peaceful purposes could be weaponized within a time frame measured in days rather than years. The implications rippled across the communication link as Federation leadership contemplated this possibility. A species that could develop reality-shaping weapons in a matter of days represented a threat beyond anything in galactic history. Commander, continue monitoring and report any changes in human development patterns. The Council is implementing new protocols for this situation, but they will require time to finalize. As the communication ended, Zixanel returned his attention to the human system. What he observed defied every assumption about the relationship between technological capability and political development. Rather than using their newfound abilities to establish dominance over their neighbors, humans seem to be using advanced technology to create a more equitable and prosperous civilization for all their people. The science officer highlighted new data showing human expansion into their outer system. Commander, humans are establishing colonies throughout their solar system, but not according to standard territorial expansion patterns. Their settlements appear designed for scientific research and resource utilization rather than strategic positioning. Science officer, are you detecting any signs of factional conflict among humans? Any indication that different groups are competing for control of their new technologies? Negative, Commander. Human technological development appears to be proceeding through unprecedented cooperation between their various political entities. They seem to be treating their advancement as a collective achievement rather than a competitive advantage. This observation violated another fundamental assumption about civilizational development. In Federation experience, rapid technological advancement always led to internal conflict as different factions sought to control new capabilities for their own benefit. Science officer, theoretical question. If humans maintain their current cooperative approach while continuing their technological advancement, what are the implications for galactic civilization? The crystalline entity processed this query through mathematical frameworks designed to analyze civilizational interactions. Commander, The implications are beyond current predictive capabilities. A cooperative civilization with reality-shaping technology represents a variable that our models cannot accommodate. Explain. Historically, advanced civilizations have been limited by internal conflicts that prevented optimal utilization of their technological capabilities. Humans appear to be developing mechanisms for avoiding such conflicts while maintaining accelerated advancement. This combination could produce capabilities that exceed the theoretical maximums for single-species civilizations. Zixanael felt his energy matrix fluctuating as he contemplated the possibility. A species that could achieve maximum technological potential while avoiding the internal conflicts that typically limited advancement could indeed develop beyond anything currently existing in the galaxy. Science Officer, Project Human Capabilities, assuming continuation of current development patterns and cooperation levels. Commander, such projections produce results that our logic systems flag as impossible. Continued human development could lead to technological capabilities that exceed current Federation achievements by orders of magnitude. How many orders of magnitude? Potentially thousands, Commander. Human approaches to fundamental physics suggest they may be developing technologies that the Federation has never conceived as possible. The monitoring station continued its observations as human civilization transformed itself with breathtaking speed. Each day brought new discoveries that challenged the theoretical foundations of galactic science. Each week saw the implementation of technologies that the Federation had deemed impossible or too dangerous to pursue. And through it all, humans continued to cooperate rather than compete, to explore rather than conquer, to innovate rather than militarize. The Ancient One's warning echoed across cosmic time. Earth must not be provoked. But as Zixanael watched humanity reshape the very foundations of technological possibility, he began to wonder whether the greater danger lay not in provoking humanity, but in failing to understand what they were becoming. In the depths of space, automated systems detected new human transmissions directed toward nearby star systems. The content suggested that humanity was preparing for its next great leap. Contact with other species as technological equals rather than primitive supplicants. The galaxy was about to discover whether its newest member would be content to join existing galactic civilization, or whether they intended to transform it entirely. The Ancient One manifested its full presence in the council chamber for the first time in eons, its form expanding beyond the usual containment sphere to fill every dimension of the vast space. The assembled delegates felt the weight of cosmic time pressing against their consciousness as the eldest being in known existence prepared to address them directly. Fellow counselors, the Ancient One began, its voice carrying harmonics that resonated across multiple planes of reality. I must share with you observations that fundamentally challenge our understanding of civilizational development. The human species has achieved something I have witnessed only once before in my existence across cosmic ages. High Counselor Vexrath felt his genetically enhanced neural pathways struggling to process the implications. Ancient One, what has humanity achieved that is so unprecedented? They have broken the cycle, the Ancient One replied. For billions of years, I have observed a consistent pattern across thousands of galactic civilizations. Species develop technology, achieve spaceflight, encounter other civilizations, and inevitably fall into one of three categories. They become passive members of existing structures, they challenge existing powers through conflict, or they transcend physical existence entirely. Images flowed through the chamber, showing the familiar patterns of galactic history. Species after species following predictable pathways of development, integration, and eventual stagnation or transcendence. Humans have chosen none of these paths, the Ancient One continued. Instead, they're creating a fourth option that I believe to be impossible. Ambassador Veltar's crystalline form resonated with frequencies of deep confusion. Ancient One, what fourth option could exist beyond those fundamental categories? They're choosing to remain engaged with physical reality while simultaneously transcending the limitations that typically constrain advanced civilizations. They're becoming something that is both beyond us and among us. The chamber filled with data streams showing the current state of human civilization. In just 2 years since first contact, humanity had not only achieved technological superiority in most fields, but had begun sharing their innovations freely with any species interested in learning. Observe their approach to advancement, the Ancient One directed. Rather than hoarding superior technology for competitive advantage, humans are actively teaching other species to achieve similar capabilities. They appear to believe that galactic civilization will be strengthened by universal advancement rather than hierarchical control. CoreMind 7431 processed this information through probability matrices that struggled to accommodate such unprecedented behavior. Ancient One, such altruism violates every principle of competitive evolution. How can humans justify weakening their relative position by elevating potential rivals? The Ancient One's response carried overtones of profound revelation. Core mind, they're not weakening their position. They're transforming the very concept of position itself. Watch what happens when humans share their technological improvements with other species. New data flowed through the chamber, showing Federation worlds that had implemented human innovations. Rather than simply adopting human technology, these civilizations were building upon it, creating new innovations that they in turn shared back with humanity. The result is not competition, but collaboration on a scale I have never witnessed, the Ancient One observed. Human generosity is creating a cascading effect of advancement that benefits all participants. They have somehow triggered cooperative evolution at the galactic level. Admiral Korthax studied the data with growing amazement. The rate of technological progress across participating worlds has increased by an average of 300% since implementing human methodologies. But more than that, the innovations are becoming increasingly sophisticated as different species contribute their unique perspectives. Indeed, the Ancient One confirmed, humans have discovered something that eluded even the architects at the height of their power. They have learned that true strength comes not from dominance, but from enabling others to achieve their maximum potential. Ambassador Thexali's psychic tendrils writhed with implications she struggled to process. But, Ancient One, if humans can inspire such advancement in others, what limits their own development? If they continue on this trajectory, where will it lead? The Ancient One's form shifted to display visions that stretched across vast scales of time and space. Ambassador, I believe humans are approaching a form of transcendence that will not require them to abandon physical existence. They are becoming a catalyst species, one that can elevate entire galactic civilizations while remaining actively engaged with them. Is such a thing possible? Asked High Counselor Vexrath. Every transcendent species we have encountered has departed for higher dimensional realms. It was considered impossible, the Ancient One acknowledged. But humans are demonstrating capabilities that redefine the possible. They have somehow learned to achieve individual advancement while simultaneously elevating collective capability. The chamber fell silent as delegates contemplated the implications. A species that could transcend limitations while helping others do the same represented something entirely outside their understanding of natural development. Ancient One, Admiral Korthax asked carefully, what does this mean for galactic civilization? If humans continue their current trajectory, how will it affect existing power structures? The Ancient One's response carried both warning and hope. Admiral, existing power structures based on technological superiority and competitive advantage will become irrelevant. Humans are creating a new model where power is measured by ability to contribute to collective advancement rather than capacity to dominate others. And species that cannot adapt to this new model will find themselves increasingly isolated as the rest of galactic civilization advances beyond their ability to comprehend or compete with, the Ancient One replied. But humans appear committed to ensuring that no willing species is left behind. New data streams showed human diplomatic teams working with struggling civilizations throughout the galaxy. Rather than exploiting their technological advantages, humans were investing enormous resources in helping less advanced species achieve breakthrough discoveries. They are literally reshaping galactic civilization, observed Ambassador Veltar, creating networks of cooperation that span hundreds of worlds and dozens of species. And the results speak for themselves, added Coremine 7431. Participating worlds report elimination of resource scarcity, breakthrough achievements in previously impossible research areas, and population satisfaction ratings that exceed historical maximums. The Ancient One's presence expanded to encompass the entire chamber as it prepared to deliver its final assessment. Fellow counselors, I have spent eons warning about the dangers of rapidly developing species. I have seen civilizations destroy themselves, and others through uncontrolled advancement. But I have never witnessed a species that could achieve unlimited development while simultaneously ensuring the safety and prosperity of all those around them. Then, humans do not represent a threat? Asked High Counselor Vexrath. They represent the transformation of threat itself, the Ancient One replied. They are teaching galactic civilization that advancement does not require competition, that strength does not require dominance, and that transcendence does not require abandonment. Images flowed through the chamber showing the current state of human space. Vast fleets of exploration vessels were spreading throughout the galaxy, but not as conquerors or colonizers. They carried technologies, knowledge, and invitation for any species interested in joining their cooperative networks. Human ships now visit over 4,000 worlds, the Ancient One noted. Not one has reported any attempt at conquest, exploitation, or coercion. Instead, humans offer partnership, knowledge sharing, and collaborative development opportunities. What do they gain from such generosity? Asked Admiral Korthax, his military mindset struggling to understand motivation without competitive advantage. They gain the advancement of galactic civilization itself, the Ancient One explained. Every species they help becomes another source of innovation, another perspective on universal problems, another partner in their exploration of ultimate possibility. The implications continued to cascade through the assembled delegates as they processed the magnitude of human impact. In just 2 years, humanity had fundamentally altered the trajectory of galactic development, creating cooperative networks that spanned light years and included dozens of species. Ancient One, High Counselor Vexrath said, "Do you recommend any changes to our current policies regarding human interaction?" The Ancient One's response carried the weight of cosmic authority. I recommend that this council formally recognize humanity as the first catalyst species in recorded galactic history. They have earned the right to participate as equals in governing galactic civilization, and, indeed, their perspectives may be essential for our continued evolution. The suggestion sent shockwaves through the chamber. No species had ever been granted such recognition so quickly after achieving spaceflight. But the evidence of human achievement was undeniable. Furthermore, the Ancient One continued, I recommend that we petition human leadership to share their methodologies for cooperative advancement. If we can learn their approaches to collaborative development, the entire Federation could benefit from their innovations. Ambassador Fexali felt her worldview reshaping itself around these new possibilities. Ancient One, are you suggesting that we should seek to learn from humans rather than teach them? I'm stating that humans have achieved mastery in areas where we remain students, the Ancient One replied. Wisdom requires recognition of superior capability regardless of its source. As the session drew to a close, delegates began the complex process of formal deliberation that would reshape galactic civilization. But the fundamental question had already been answered. Humanity had not only proven itself worthy of galactic citizenship, They had demonstrated that they were prepared to lead galactic evolution into previously unimaginable realms. In the depths of space, human exploration fleets continued their missions of discovery and cooperation. Each new world they contacted became another node in an expanding network of collaborative advancement. Each species they encountered was offered the opportunity to participate in humanity's grand experiment in collective transcendence. The Ancient Ones settled back into contemplative observation, but for the first time in cosmic ages, its thoughts were focused on the future rather than the past. Humanity had achieved something that even its vast experience had considered impossible. They'd found a way to transcend without leaving others behind. The age of competitive civilization was ending. The era of collaborative transcendence had begun, and at its center, on a small blue world that had once been considered primitive and dangerous, humanity continued its patient work of reshaping reality itself through the simple but revolutionary principle that everyone could win if they chose to play the right game. The Ancient One had been wrong about one thing. Humanity was not dangerous because they could become a threat to galactic civilization. They were dangerous because they could make galactic civilization so much better that no one would ever be satisfied with the old ways again. And across the galaxy, species that had spent millions of years accepting limitations were beginning to discover what humans had always known, that the only real limitation is the belief that limitations cannot be overcome. The transformation had begun, and there would be no going back.